Hey, everybody.
Yep.
What's going on?
Yeah, I've been looking forward to doing a show on this.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit on Friday night, but I was kind of like, well, you know, keep some of it back because we want to do like a whole show about it.
Yeah, it looks like everybody's still kind of
drifting
in. Got some people coming. But, yeah, Northman. Had people on the show ask me, hey, what'd you think of that? How good was it? This movie is fucking bad ass. Ass. That's what it is. Bad ass. That's what it is. This movie, okay, y'all know that one of my favorite movies of all times is Conan 1. All right, I've watched that movie millions of times. Fucking picked it apart, listened to it with fucking John Milius's fucking commentary. Compared it with fucking Nietzschean philosophy, if you want to call it philosophy, but fucking Conan 1's a masterpiece. A lot of people that have never seen it, they don't have any idea what I'm talking about. You see that shit you see Conan in a really good copy of it on Blu-ray on a really good television with headphones or something with the fucking music jacked up, because it's basically you're seeing an opera. And everything that happens in there makes sense. If you understand philosophy, all right. Now, some of it didn't make sense. Turns out there's some fucking deleted scenes, all right, and it makes a lot more sense with some of the deleted scenes reinstalled. And they did install the stuff that had gotten deleted in some copies. My copy is still missing one of the scenes where Conan starts talking to Subutai about spring, and then it started to make all the fucking sense with the Eye of the Serpent. The necklace that he gave to Valerian when she gave it back, and he starts talking about, for all these years we've been fighting and got nothing in return, and spring comes, all this kind of shit, we need to fucking stop this life. Basically what he's talking about. Talking about the sacred feminine. There's a lot of shit in there. That scene is not in my copy, but they restored the original ending where the princess takes him back. So okay, people are starting to come in now. All right. So, but yeah, I know Conan well, all right? I've just analyzed it over and over again. So I'm not approaching the Northman with a superficial knowledge, okay, of Conan. I'm approaching Northman with an expert's understanding of Conan. And this movie stands right along with it. It's good. It's real good. I've only seen it once. There's a lot of stuff I didn't quite pick up, but it homages Conan over and over again without copying it. It's just they've seen Conan, and they want you to know that, yeah, we've seen Conan. Okay, a lot of things happen in the same order from Conan. But this is only kind of a retelling, more like an homage. It has a lot of spirituality in it, but everything is Norse style. Norse and fucking... the tone is very different from Conan. It's folk horror, like Midsummer, or fucking what's the other one? Fucking Wicker Man, or mixed in with fucking Hereditary. Hereditary, yeah. It's action adventure. It's a Conan style story, but it's fucking hardcore, man. The tone is almost satanic, but still ruthless, but still fucking kind of beautiful. There's something beautiful about it, It's just a real good story. Here's a good example. Conan is more like Iron Maiden, all right? This is more like Cradle of Filth or fucking Celtic Frost or Slayer. It's like that. That's the difference in tone. But it's still real good, I want to see it a couple more times. It doesn't have the same kind of symbolism in it. But it doesn't have to. It's a different movie. What'd you think, Jen?
Well, the thing about it is that, yes, it does homage Conan, and actually Robert Eggers did say that he took some inspiration from Conan. Yeah. But the story of this is actually based on a very old Norse saga, the Legend of Amleth, which was actually the inspiration for Shakespeare's Hamlet, which a lot of people have said, because people have said, oh, it's an updating of Hamlet. They're like, not really, because Hamlet was based on this older Norse story.
Yeah.
So that's why this has this is also kind of like Hamlet.
It's a great movie. This is
fantastic.
like a Norse version of Apocalypto, the movie Apocalypto. It's like that. It's as great as that. Although I'm going to give this I say is better than Apocalypto, even though Apocalypto's great. Shit happens in the damn Norse spirit world. It happens in his imagination, the way he sees it. He sees the tree of life. He's seeing his ancestry at certain times. And you get to see what he's seeing in his mind. And it's bizarre. He's seeing the tree of life with ancestors on it that are dead. And they're fucking corpses. And then he sees fucking unborn coming ancestors that are alive, but they haven't been born yet. That was fucking great. He's seeing Valkyries, ghosts. People have premonitions. Premonitions that kind of come true. It's just awesome. Awesome's tale. It's legendary. It's going to stand with Conan. Conan 1. It'll be remembered like that. It's just awesome.
I kind of feel like this movie, you know what's kind of awesome is that Robert Eggers, you know, his first movie being The Witch and then his second one being The Lighthouse, which were you know, lower budget, but they were kind of more indie films. He got a studio to give him like $70 million to make this one. Sadly, I don't think it's going to make it back, at least in the theater.
It will on
because
Blu-ray.
it's not there yet.
Yeah.
But I mean, you have to admire the fucking balls of making a movie. They don't really make a lot of movies like this because it's kind of like, you could say it's sort of like an epic historical, you know, saga, and they do make movies like that, but there's just something different about this one that's, I'm not sure how to describe it. It's really historically accurate, like to the period. You know, everything. I mean, everybody's speaking English, obviously, but you know, they're not speaking Old Norse or anything, which that kind of surprises me, but he was like, maybe that's just like a step too far. That would be like too much of a pain, because that seems like some shit he would do. But everybody's speaking English. But other than that, it's like completely historically. They had all kind of like, you know, professionals, like, you know, historians from that area from that time period, consulting on it so he could get everything as accurate as possible. And so it has that sort of like grounded in reality thing, like all of the, and it's not like a big epic, because I kind of feel like, don't they have that TV series Vikings, which I've seen a few of those and it's pretty good, but that seems like mostly kind of just centered around like the fighting. Yeah. And this has fighting in it too, but it's not like a big epic, like, big epic battles or anything like that. When there's violence, it's usually kind of like one-on-one, or it's just kind of like
as it was
a small group, right? So it's a lot more realistic.
Yeah,
it doesn't have, but it has an epic scope, but it's more realistic. But then on the other side of it, it also has, much like The Lighthouse had, it has dreamlike imagery, because at some points, like, the characters kind of go on, you know, it's like a spirit walk type of thing, or, you know, there's kind of like an occult kind of thing to it going along with their beliefs.
Let me answer some questions real quick.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a movie. It's not a series. Okay. I think there's another series or movie called Northman, not the Northman, the Northmen, but that's not the same one we're talking about. And yeah, I was talking about Conan the movie, not the books. That the John Milius movie, the first one. And there's about 3 different edits that I know of that movie, and I don't think they all have everything in each edit. So some edits are better than others. But yeah, so that's what we're talking about. It's a movie. It's great. It's a great movie.
It is.
And yeah, I meant unborn descendants, not unborn ancestors. But his ancestors were dead. Some of them he killed. He sees them in the tree, and they're rotten and shit, you know. And some of them have not yet been born. So I don't want to spoil the movie if you guys haven't seen it. It's still in some theaters. It needs to be seen before it goes. I'm definitely going to buy a high quality version of this bitch. It's going to, on Blu-ray. It's going to maybe 4K. Just depends on how I feel. I'm going to put it right next to Milius's Conan. And no, you know, some people are like, well, that's not the real Conan. I just judged the Conan movie based upon John Milius and Oliver Stone's original vision for what it was. You know what I mean? And it's a self-contained movie. It mostly has to do with Friedrich Nietzsche, and it quotes Nietzsche as the movie starts. So it's just another rendition of Conan. If you like that movie, you will love this movie.
And I kind of feel like I've been watching other people's kind of breakdowns of it, and almost everybody that I've seen, especially all the male reviewers, fucking love this movie.
Yeah, it's extremely violent and ruthless, very cold-blooded, very accurate to what we know of about what was written about Vikings and just the Norse people and berserkers. They're in it. The Rus are in it. It's pretty accurate. The only thing that it doesn't really go into is that your average Norse wasn't a Viking. A Viking was like a pirate or a raider. They had a very short growing season. They had to go out and steal and raid and get fucking gold and slaves for trade, and so they ended up building an empire. And they were never conquered, really. They never really lost. They were conquered by success. They just married so many European women of Christian heritage that they just kind of bred themselves out of existence. Their kids didn't want to be pirates. You know what I mean? Which is that shown in this movie, because as I was looking at his descendants in the tree, they were dressed as what I thought they were dressed as Christians, weren't they?
I thought maybe because they do go a little bit into because a couple of the slaves that get captured and brought up later, they kind of like make fun of them for being Christian. But yeah, so that could be
because they show his daughter and his son who have not yet been born, and they're wearing red cloaks and veils like the Virgin Mary, and she's got a sword and a spear, and it did kind of look like Christian imagery. It looked like Christian imagery, that his descendants were going to be Christian, and she went back to the land of the Rus. Remember, she didn't stay.
Yeah.
So that's how I interpreted it.
I thought she went to Orkney, did she not?
Yeah, but it wasn't that part of where she came from, though. Somewhere where the Rus.
They kept calling her the Slav.
Yeah, well, she was Russian.
Olga, yeah.
The northern parts of Russia was all kind of like Viking-esque territory. But they weren't. They were a different religion.
Yeah.
So the way I interpreted the ending is that his descendants were to be Christians.
Interesting. Yeah. Now that you mention it, I'm like, that did seem like what they were getting at.
Yeah, and that his daughter is basically dressed like a medieval Virgin Mary.
Yeah.
Remember, she had the cloak and the veil and everything. So that's how I interpreted it. Is that the Northmen, because that's what happened in reality, in history. That's what happened to the Vikings.
Well, so that would make sense, to put that in there.
Their descendants ended up being Christians.
Scoop Dog points out that Björk is in this movie, or Slasher Fred points out, she's only in one scene. She plays like a seer, like a sorceress type of character, and she's actually great. Like the costume and stuff like that looks really, really cool. But yeah, and then Scoop Dog is bringing up the Sugar Cubes, which I was a big fan of as well. I actually bought Life's Too Good on cassette when it first came out, and that was like a really, really back in '88. That was like a really, really great album. Cold Sweat, Birthday. Those were really great songs.
There are big fights in it, but they're not like. Which I think it's great. They didn't do the Lord of the Rings style fucking battles.
That's kind of what I was getting at. Yeah, where it's just like these big, huge like
that didn't exist in reality.
This one is a lot more intimate because it's only like a handful of people.
Yeah, you have to realize that in a kingdom really was a glorified plantation. You know what I mean? It was a farm. That's who the king was. And it was. You were lucky if it was a few hundred people. That was a pretty big kingdom. And then you might have 70 or 80 fighters, and they might wage war on another king. And it was a similar size thing, and that's what you see here. They start raiding the Rus, and it's a glorified plantation. And it's a gang fight.
Yeah, it's just like a village.
Yeah, a village.
Essentially.
A village with a wall around it.
Yeah, is pretty much all it is. With maybe like 100, 200 people in there.
Yeah, if that. It looked like more like about 60 or 70. Because remember, they had the women up in the gaggle. That was only about 30 people.
Yeah.
And when they rode in there, the fucking they own, the Vikings, or the Vikings that the berserkers were working for, they only had one horse. Remember, and the princess was on it.
That's right.
And
yeah.
She comes out and she says, I don't want any little ones, I want big ones. And then they killed the children.
Yeah. She's like, I just want the strong ones.
Yeah.
Most of them, they just thought they were. Yeah, there's some pretty hardcore shit in this. Like I said,
because they kill children and all kinds.
Yeah,
of shit.
they just put them in a thing and burn them alive or shit like that. Well, like I said, I don't feel too bad spoiling it, because like I said, it's not the exact same story as Hamlet, but because Hamlet was based on this same myth that this movie is a loose adaptation of, it's not really. I mean, it's just basically a straight up revenge story is what it is. You have Alexander Skarsgård at the beginning, who, his character's Amleth, who's a kid, and he sees his dad, the king, get killed by his brother, and then he vows to take vengeance, and then, then he grows up and he kind of goes, he has to get the right sword, and he, goes to the, like I said, if you've seen Hamlet or if you've seen Conan, it's pretty much the same, kind of revenge journey type
Somebody's
situation.
in there saying I need to go through my old VHSs and see the original Conan. I don't see that one because that one has the fucked up ending in it, and VHS looks like shit compared to the way it looked in the theater. What you do is you want to go on Amazon Prime and rent it. It's only a couple bucks. And rent it and see it on your damn HD television. And it has the one that I saw on because I saw it on Amazon Prime before I bought my copy of it. It had the original ending restored, where the princess takes him back to Thulsa Doom's place, and she's with him when he kills Thulsa Doom, and he almost takes over the cult, but he decides against it, and he goes through the whole thinker phase, like fucking, something out of a Nietzsche. But it. And when I bought my copy, it was that same version of it. But there's another version out there. You can see somebody had lifted the scene out of where Subutai and Conan talk about springtime coming, and that happened right after Valeria died, and he put her the Eye of the Serpent necklace on, and then he started talking about it's not too late for us, Subutai. He's talking about that we could have children, is what he's talking about. We should get married and have children. He's like, nah, it's not for us. That's what Subutai.
Which, like I said, this is kind of like a similar type of thing, because kind of the whole theme of the Northman is, this kid. I mean, he was just a kid when his father was killed, and he swore vengeance, and that was his destiny. That was his fate.
Yeah.
And as the story goes on, and he has other possibilities that are presented to him,
he doesn't take them.
It's kind of like he has a choice whether you can leave all this behind and leave hatred behind, or keep on going with that because that's what your destiny is.
A lot of things happen kind of in the same order as it happened in Conan. He loses everything. He doesn't really. He escapes and has to survive on his own. He doesn't become a slave and fight in a pit. Instead, he joins a warrior cult of berserkers and becomes a berserker. And then they go out and raid for other people, kind of like mercenaries. And this involves doing the worst of the worst. So it's kind of like killing children and women and blah, blah, blah. And that's kind of like a good analogy with Conan. He did not care anymore. Life, death, the same. That's what they were talking about. And there was a deleted scene that they took out of the movie. They show Conan killing all these people and biting them and shit in the pit, and he's holding up his swords, doing all this, and the crowd's fucking loving it. What they cut out is that there was a scene where he fought two twin females, and female gladiators killed them both and was holding their heads up like that. And that was supposed to really shock the 70s audience that this dude would kill women, And I think the footage might still be out there, but it's not on any other. It's not on any version that I know of. But Milius talked about it in the commentary. Okay, that he wanted the one where he was holding up the two women's heads by their hair, and that was supposed to really kind of horrify the audience of the very early 80s, or I think it was late 80s, or early 80s, I think it was 81, wasn't it? 1980 or 1981. I saw it in the theater as a kid.
Yeah.
That was supposed to horrify people because they didn't see that on screen back then. where you have a guy who's supposed to be the hero, but he had murdered or killed women.
Right.
You know. So Milius wanted to push the boundaries of what you would consider to be a hero. He had to fucking be a total savage in the beginning and then come out of it. And that kind of happens in this. In this, he's a berserker, but then he kind of comes out of it. But not really. You're still dealing with the damn Viking, man. They were psychos. I mean, they were fucking psychos, man.
Well, and what he does, he goes and he's with the berserkers for a while, but then he finds out where his foe is, his uncle, Fjolnir. And he poses as a slave, like allows himself to he climbs on the boat, like, and allows himself to get enslaved so he can go to that dude's farm and fuck with him. Right.
And he's done a lot of bad shit, but he's going after people that are even more evil than he is. So it's all just kind of the movie kind of says, well, evil is a spectrum. You know?
Yeah, I mean,
they're even worse than him.
He does horrible things.
Yeah.
But
he's a Viking, though.
Yeah, but he's still like, you still kind of want to.
You want him to win.
You want him to win, though.
Right, yeah.
I mean, he still has redeeming qualities, particularly like in his relationship with Olga, who is another slave girl that he meets, who's Slavic.
Yeah, and once he realizes how evil the enemy is, he starts doing shit like freeing fucking women that were bound up, getting ready to be sacrificed. It doesn't say that he questioned Odin. It's just that the evil people he was after were better sacrifices than these slaves.
Yeah,
and you know that was how he resolved the issue. And then in the end, once he overthrows this basically an evil kingdom, which, like I said, is a glorified plantation. And this particular one doesn't even have a wall around it because it's in the Northland. It's in Iceland.
Yeah.
He basically tells all the slaves, I'm your master now, burn this shit down, you're free.
Yeah.
You know. And he was their master. He had fucking killed everybody else.
Yeah.
You know, he had the authority to do it. You know. It's a great movie.
And as
I want to see it again because there's a bunch of shit that I missed. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is probably, if you're into Viking shit, this is probably the most period accurate Viking thing that you're ever gonna see.
The religion and everything.
They really took pains. And I'm gonna say too that I love the score of this. They use like a lot of really old, like that creepy like chanting and drums and all that kind of stuff. It was like really, really cool. I loved Willem Dafoe in this, even though he's only in it for like a minute. He's in it at the beginning like as a jester, and then later he's in it like as a creepy severed head. So that's like pretty cool. He's like the shaman, I guess, like type situation where they're doing like the spirit walk, like Amleth and his dad, like when Amleth is a kid, where they're channeling the spirits of the wolves and finding their destiny and all this other kind of stuff. Everybody in this was great. I mean, Alexander Skarsgård, who I guess he's of Swedish ancestry, and he had been wanting to do like a Viking film like forever, like a really accurate one, and so finally he got the chance to do it. And he's a big dude. I looked at he's 6'5". Because I've noticed, like, in the film, because I've seen him in other stuff, but I guess it didn't stick out to me, like, how tall he was. But in this, like, he's definitely, like, towering over, like, a bunch of the other people. And he was pretty buff before, but they, like, really, like, beefed him out. Because he's supposed to be just this big, like, beast-like
and he is.
Character. Yeah, he's fucking great. He's great in this.
Everybody's physicality matches up with the feats that they're doing in this movie. Nothing is out of character. You don't have 90-pound girls in cheerleader outfits wiping out for hordes of Nazi soldiers. You don't have any of that bullshit. If somebody's fucking fighting somebody, and it's kind of like true to Norse culture. They're taking their clothes off and fighting naked and shit, which they did that when they were really serious. They just fucking took all their clothes
in the car on the way home from the movie theater. Tom is like, fighting naked on an active volcano. You can't get any more macho than
that. It was macho as fuck. Yeah, macho as fuck. The motherfuckers were naked. Fighting to the death. All they had was swords. They're doing this shit on lava. Volcano. Jumping across lava and shit. And it didn't look fake. It looked real.
It really did. I mean...
Yeah, it didn't look like fucking... It didn't look like fucking, fucking Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi fighting on Mustafar. It didn't look like that. It looked like they were fucking on a real damn volcano and with a black sky because of all the damn soot. They could barely see each other. You know, you couldn't really see.
They were just like, oh!
Yeah, they were like, I will meet you at the gates of hell and we will fight.
That was what they called the volcano.
That's what they called that volcano, the gates of hell. That's where you went down into the fucking hell.
Yeah.
So it made perfect sense. So they go, okay, so they went down there to kill each other. It was a fucking badass scene. And here's another thing. Like I said, if this was heavy metal, Conan 1 is Iron Maiden. This is Cradle of Filth. All right, it's still a good metal band. It's just a lot harder. All right, a lot more violent and ruthless, but it still had a lot of depth, man. It had real all-star cast and everything. Acting was fucking great. It's like, oh shit, what was I gonna say about it?
I don't know.
It was something about the quality of the movie. It was just saying that the tone is different, but I was gonna say the music. It's Conan had that good classical, almost Wagnerian. Fucking who did that music? It was fucking great. You can just listen to the Conan soundtrack. It's just great classical music. What was that guy?
Shit, man.
He's a real famous.
Yeah.
The problem with that soundtrack is that it's in mono. They went through all that fucking problem to get a damn orchestra and write all that shit, and they recorded it in mono. It's not even stereo. But anyway, they had to be as epic as that, but they couldn't copy that. And that would cost a lot of money to do today. So what they did is they did nothing but just savage drums and chanting. And it's very effective.
Yeah, I was into
just
that.
Chanting.
I was into that.
And it's just evil, satanic chanting and fucking drums and shit. And it's fucking great.
And I'm kind of feeling like the way that it's put across in the movie, it really did feel like period accurate to me.
Yeah.
It really does like immerse you in this world. I really did feel like, hey, this is like 895 AD or whatever the fuck year it was. You know, and these are all actual Vikings. I didn't get... You don't get the feeling that anyone is like acting.
No,
really.
Most of them aren't even wearing shoes. Barefoot. Running around in the mud. It must have been miserable. Because it looked cold as shit, and they're just running around barefoot.
They shot some of it in Ireland and some of it in Iceland.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sure it probably was cold.
And you know, they got the pretty girls that, you know, and fucking run around there barefoot.
Yeah.
They look dirty. It looks good. I mean, that looks exactly like you would think that they would look. I mean, the shit, they're enslaved. And I think even the rich people, if that's what you want to call them, even they don't. I don't even think they had shoes. A lot of them. I think shoes were just something that men wore.
That's some fancy ass shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody just looked filthy.
Yeah.
And cold.
And or high because they were taking drugs a lot.
Yeah.
Fucking during these damn vision walks and spirit walks underneath the fucking ground with fucking dried up dead body parts and stuff and talking to fucking dead ancestors and shit.
I liked that because I was kind of expecting it to be more like, you know, just like more like a straight ahead, like traditional. I should have known better, I guess, because it's Robert Eggers, but I was expecting it to be more like a traditional Viking epic kind of story, which it is, but I didn't expect there to be like so much mysticism in it, and I thought that was like a really cool
it's almost like
aspect of it.
It's almost like that movie Midsummer with that folk horror. It has a big folk horror feel to it because whenever they did something, they'd have to fucking take drugs and fucking sacrifice somebody or kill somebody, or we're gonna stab this woman to death, you know, to appease the gods. And so that's why I was saying it's almost kind of like Apocalypto, because that was going on in Apocalypto, you know, fucking trying to capture sacrifices. And that was accurate too. Mel Gibson did a good job on it. They're doing it in this movie, but they're doing it with all that damn soundtrack going, and it's just, it has a horror element to it. You're like, shit. Because they believed in some weird ass shit.
They did, yeah.
You know, and there's a lot of dismemberment of body parts nailed up on things as signs, and yeah, it's real good.
Yeah, it's pretty gruesome. I mean, yeah, it is pretty gruesome.
Yeah.
My favorite scene was with the guy with no nose.
Yeah, the one dude just runs, he got no nose. Did they explain how it got cut off?
Yeah, the kid cut it off at the beginning.
Okay.
Because remember
something happened.
Remember after they killed the king and Amleth as a kid was trying to run away and that guy like grabbed him and he went like shoop, and he cut the dude's nose off. And then like later on he recognized, oh, there's that no-nose guy. Yeah,
and don't for one second think children are safe. Not only do children get killed in this, children try to kill people too.
Yeah.
And use weapons, and it's the way it was. You know, a little kid's going to fight for their life if you try to kill a kid. Or a kid will fight to defend somebody else if they're under attack. And that happens in this, you know, on many occasions. And bad shit happens to children. You know?
Yeah, I mean, one scene in particular.
Yeah.
It's like pretty bad.
It made sense at the time, though. Because you couldn't let the children of your enemies survive. They'd grow up in a few years and they'd come back at you.
And they'd come back and kick
So you had to just wipe out everybody.
Yeah, and that's what they did.
Right.
But
they were all kind of feral. Especially Vikings and Berserkers, they were feral, basically. They were in warrior cults. And they show what they tried to do to them, you know. They were take a bunch of drugs, make them suffer a lot, physical deprivation, and try to get them to become bestial, to get them to unleash animal totems in them to become fierce. They'd go into combat wearing animal skins or nothing, you know. They didn't have any fear, and they were, you know, they were going berserk. They were going bizarre, you know, what they called it.
Well, yeah, that's kind of like very near the beginning of the movie with like Ethan Hawke, who plays the first king who gets killed, and Amleth as a boy. That's the thing when Amleth is however old he was, he looked about 10 or 11 or something like that. And he takes him to the shaman, and they're doing like the fucking spirit walk, basically to like release, like you said, his animal totem. He gets him to be like a dog, you know what I mean, like, or a wolf or whatever.
Yeah, and it's not made up because Roman soldiers during the Roman period had noticed that, you know, Frankish people and other people like Gauls and stuff that they were fighting, and they were all kind of Viking-like. Would take their clothes off, paint their body, go into fucking frenzies, bloodlusts, and they would say that you'd be fighting some guys, and they'd be fighting kind of like individuals, but they were attacking all at once, and then just out of the blue, one of them would turn and fucking attack and kill one of their own kind. Without it, because they just would go into a damn frenzy, and they were on drugs too.
Yeah,
you know, so they would kill each other.
It's like when a bunch of sharks get into
like
feeding frenzy. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Carl.
Well, the Romans wrote down they were scared of them.
I guess you would be.
They were big. They had longer swords than Romans, and there was kind of a man crush going on between the Romans and the Germans. They called them Germans, or Frankish people, or Franks or whatever. But they were all kind of Viking type people. Who'd come from somewhere in Near East, probably. They just walk in the area and just beat each other's asses, and they were cannibals a lot of times and worshiped strange gods. Evidently, some of them were Christians already that the Romans were dealing with, but they were still just the same, you know. Just because somebody was a Christian didn't mean that they were civilized in that period. Some of them were fucking worse.
True.
You know? They're like, oh, well, we don't like you, so we're going to do to you what happened to our Lord. If it was good enough for Jesus, then it's good enough for you. Start crucifying people, you know. They did all shit like that, you know.
Yeah.
They were Germanic Christians.
The Conan music, that's right, was done by Basil Polidoris.
That's right. Basil Polidoris. Man, that's a fucking...
I really do like that score, actually.
You can work out to that music. Yeah. Lifting weights to that.
But I really do like this. This movie doesn't really have... It doesn't really have like a classical score like that does, like a cinematic score.
It's tribal.
Let's call it like that. It's a very, very tribal kind of, so which is very, very keeping in with the theme of the movie. Which, like I said, very realistic, but it does have like I don't want to say magical realism, but it does have like kind of a cult kind of thing to it because they're, like I said, they're going into these like altered states. Yeah,
and they're seeing Valkyries as they die and shit, and they're going into Valhalla, and they're seeing the Tree of Life, and they're seeing fucking the Gates of Hell, and they're seeing it, and they're showing it to you, what they're seeing, and it's kind of warping your reality. But I'd imagine, in those days, if you were a Viking, your reality was pretty fucking warped, You probably had a hard time discerning between what you imagined and what you saw. But it's all right there.
And can I just say, I love Anya Taylor-Joy in this.
Yeah.
She was in The Witch too, so she's worked with Robert Eggers before. She looks very much like somebody who would be in this type of movie. Yeah. She's like so funny looking, but also like super, super cute, I always thought. Kaylon Higgins said, isn't Amleth an anagram for Hamlet? Yeah, I brought that up earlier, that Shakespeare actually based Hamlet on the story that this is based on, like the Old Norse saga, the legend of Amleth. So that's why it's a similar story. But so this story is actually much older than Hamlet.
Yeah, they're mentioning dogs that they bred to fight Vikings. Yeah, there's a lot of dogs in this. They have a lot of war dogs, and special thing, I think it may be a bee-wolf, I think is one of the things that they show. It's CG. It's like a wolf and a fox and an otter all kind of combined. He sees it on a couple of occasions and somehow uses that magic to cause the war dogs to fucking turn on their masters. I got to see it a couple times.
Well, remember Björk told him. Björk told him.
Yeah.
The sorceress told him.
Yeah.
That she says something like "follow the vixen's tail."
Yeah.
So that's why, like, when he sees it out there and it looks at him like significantly.
Okay. So she called it a vixen.
Yeah, I think that's what she called it. Okay. Which is, well, a vixen. That's what a female fox is called, right?
Yeah.
But it might be like a female of other species as well. But
his last name, I believe, is Beowulf. Amleth, I think his last name is Beowulf, right?
I'm not really sure. Okay. Like, the king's name...
Which is Beowulf. Same thing.
Yeah, that sounded like that's what they were saying. Like, the king's name, the guy that Ethan Hawke plays, his name is Arvindel Warraven.
Okay, yeah.
But I'm not really sure... what Amleth's last name was, if he had one.
The Norse had a lot of imagination when it came to classifying animals. Just most things were just called Beowulf or Big Wolf. It just means big wolf. And
it's like, that's a big wolf, that's a big wolf, that's a big wolf. It's an elephant, but it's like, whatever. That's an even bigger wolf.
Yeah, big wolf could be, because wolf just meant predator.
Yeah.
So they may have been talking about bears. It's probably what a big wolf was. A bear. Okay.
Close enough.
And then you see a big wolf and you go, yeah, that's a big wolf too. It's just critter.
Yeah.
It means critter.
Well, they're like, well, it can fuck you up, so it's all in the same class.
Yeah, right. Anything that can fuck you up is the same animal. In the South, we have them. Critters. They can be little or big. And they could be human. That's a critter too. So I think that's what Beowulf means, critter, I believe. But they're probably talking about bear.
Maybe.
Bear.
But I didn't know, like, what that animal was supposed to be, because it kind of looked like...
I think it was a Beowulf.
Yeah, it kind of looked like you said, it sort of looked like a dog, but it kind of looked like a baby bear, but then it kind of looked like an otter, and it kind of looked like a fox.
I think it was a Beowulf.
I'm not sure if that's like a real animal or not.
No.
It very well might be.
No, it was a Norse imaginary animal, and I think it was a Beowulf.
I guess that's how he knew that it's like, oh, that's the animal that the sorceress was talking about.
Yeah, she called it a vixen.
I'm pretty sure that's what she said.
Right.
Like, because remember she gave him that, she told him, like, his destiny in that tomb or whatever. And I'm pretty sure that's what she said, follow the vixen's tail, right? Yeah. I think that's what she said.
Okay, how Amleth gets his sword, and he does get a magic sword. All right. The sword cannot be drawn during day. You just can't even get it out of the fucking scabbard. All right. But when it's out at night, it's almost like a damn lightsaber to cut right through a human just cleanly. All right. It's a badass sword. And they don't make a big deal out of it. But they did make a big deal out of how he got it. And he got it from another dead Viking. And the scene, I loved it, is a fucking homage to how Conan got his sword from the Aquilonian. I think it was no, he wasn't an Aquilonian. He was an Atlantean general who was fucking dead up in his crypt. It's an homage to that, but better. You'll understand it as soon as it comes down through the ceiling, just like fucking Conan did, and everything. And you see it, and you go, "Oh, that's the same dude Conan fucking got." And you see it, but it goes differently. It goes differently. You'll like it. You'll like it.
Yeah.
Because this movie, like I said, is not Iron Maiden. This is Cradle of Filth. So you see it, but you go, nope, that's not how it's going to go. You'll see, you'll understand it. Yeah. You just can't take this sword. You just can't take it.
Yeah.
That's too easy. So.
Yeah, he has to go through a whole ordeal.
He has to go through some shit. Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny because as soon as I saw that scene, I was just like, oh, like Conan. And it's like, yeah.
Yep, that's exactly what he's talking about.
But, well,
the
like I said,
armor is similar and everything.
Robert Eggers wanted to homage Conan a lot of times. Like I said, even though this is essentially the same story as Hamlet, because it's like an old Norse saga, but he still wanted to homage Conan, too.
In the original story, when Milius is telling the story, the one that is homaging, Conan was on the run, being chased by wolves, and he couldn't even make a living for himself because he'd been released from slavery and starting from zero. Okay? And wolves are chasing him, and he runs up on top of a mountain of rocks and falls through and meets a dead Atlantean general. He was even buried in there with all his women. Okay? That's how badass he was. He had all this fucking high-tech armor, shit from another era. And he takes that fucking sword, and with that sword, he's able to fucking start a life for himself. You know what I mean? He takes a sword and fucking... The general just kind of collapses. Like he just gives... Like he's bequeathing his fucking inheritance to a new version of himself. That's what it meant. Okay? Later on, you know, in Milius's version, it's basically the story says we men like Conan are created through a succession of different fathers. His natural father, he was imperfect. His slave master, who was imperfect. The general, who was imperfect. Even all the way down to Thulsa Doom was his father, but they were all imperfect. You're all being created by the guys that you know, the ones that came before you. That's what that story is talking about. And this story kind of does that too with that particular scene. He's kind of taken up the mantle of the one that had came before him, and he was an evil motherfucker also. Okay, and that's what this was about. You know, it's good. I just got to see it again so I can get all the mythology down, because there is a mythological tale there and a lot of symbolism, a lot of but you got to watch it several times before you can pick up on everything.
Yeah, because it's a long movie. It's like 2 hours and 17 minutes. It didn't seem long to me, though.
And there's probably going to be a director's cut that's even longer. How much you want to bet?
Yeah, I imagine there probably will be. But yeah, I mean, this was pretty fucking epic. And like I said, I don't think it's going to be in the theaters that much longer, unfortunately, because it made some money, but I don't think it's going to make its money back in theaters, which is kind of a shame. It made more than I thought it would, especially for a Robert Eggers movie, because usually he makes kind of like lower key shit. But if you want to see it, like, I would recommend seeing it in the theater because
it's only been here a couple more days. Like,
and because it's like it's such a big like epic, and like the cinematography is just so amazing. Yeah. That it's really not going to be the same experience.
One of the best movies I've seen in the theater in a long time.
Yeah, same.
And it's the best one in the fucking sword genre for in decades. In decades.
Yeah, because it's not. It's like not Hollywoodized at all. It's not glamorous at all. It's very, very realistic. Yeah. You know, and I think that's what's cool about it.
It's an updated version of what you would do if you wanted to make Conan again. All right, that's what it is. You can't do Conan. It's the title is fucking owned, and they would want to try to make a lot of money on it. And to make a lot of money on it, they'd have to fucking make it PG. And they'd have to do a lot of fucking bullshit to try to make that for a general audience, and that didn't work out last time when they did it. You end up with something like out of the Marvel Universe, and it'll suck. Okay, it's not hard enough. So they started from scratch. They used a fucking real story, like you said, Amleth, and then they fucking redid it. That Conan fans would instantly know what it is that they're dealing with.
Even though it's harder. It's less fantasy. Yeah, it's not like a classic like sword and sorcery like fantasy type of thing. Mm-mm. It's a lot more grounded in reality, even though it does have like occult or magical aspects.
Well, it has a horror tone.
Yeah.
It's not, like I said, this bitch is rated R. Okay, very R.
Yeah, it's pretty, like, people get really fucked up in this.
Right. And the original Conan movie was rated R. But the ones that came after it, they weren't. They're PG and they sucked.
Well, you know.
Yeah. And it wasn't Milius that did them.
Scoop Dog says, it's getting excellent ratings. Yeah, it's got pretty much universal acclaim. I think it's 90-something% on Rotten Tomatoes. I haven't really seen that many negative reviews of it. Pretty much all the ones I've seen have been overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah, and AMC here only had it playing in one theater once.
Once a day, yeah.
Once a day. So it's rotate now.
Yeah,
Now, and
well, the thing about it is that we went on a Thursday.
Yeah.
And it was the same Thursday that the new Doctor Strange movie started. Yeah. So that was probably showing in several theaters because everybody was there seeing that.
I wish I would have been able to see this in I didn't know it was this good.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen it in Dolby.
Because it was playing in Dolby at first.
Yeah, but man, I missed it.
Yeah, we just saw it in the regular theater because it was only one showing. Yeah. And it was like at 6:30 or something.
You got to see this before it goes. Go ahead and go on your AMC app or whatever and fucking see this bitch before it's out because you're gonna miss out.
It's badass. I really liked it. Yeah. And honestly, I would really like to see it again. Like I said, I got really like immersed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's really good at like building the whole world. And yeah, it's long, but to me it didn't seem all that long. And it's not that it's like, you know, action a minute or anything like that. I mean, but it moves along pretty good. It's not like these big epic battle scenes or anything like that, but it just has like realistic like violence and realistic action, and you know, it just kind of goes on his revenge quest, and that's all it is. It's basically just a revenge story. So yeah, it's definitely worth watching. You know, one of the best movies I've seen in a long time. In that genre. So yeah, if you like Viking stuff, then yeah, you should totally see it. Yeah, Nicole Kidman is in it too. Yeah, she plays Gudrun. She's the queen, I guess. And yeah, she does a good job. She actually I wasn't sure, like, because I kind of thought her role was going to be a little bit more minor, but then toward the end there's kind of like something that happens that I was just kind of like, oh well shit, all right. She's got like a bigger part in it than I thought. And like I said, I'm really into, like, Anya Taylor-Joy is really good in this too. When he meets her, he's like, you know, the love interest or whatever, but she's also a slave, but she's also kind of like a sorceress. So she does like all this kind of magic and shit as well. So he's kind of like, he has the brawn and the strength and everything, and she has like the cunning and the magic, like earth magic. So they're kind of like working together to like bring about the revenge that they want to bring about. So yeah, definitely worth watching. I would, you know, please see it in the theater. I really want it to make its money back because I would really like if more movies like this got made. You know, because they don't really make a lot of big budget movies like this, and I really wish that we could encourage that. But yeah, so. You have anything else you'd like to add before
that's it. I'm just saying, get in there before it fucker's gone. I'm gonna see it again on Amazon Prime, but I wish I would have seen it
in Dolby. Yeah,
in Dolby.
It would have been cool in Dolby. Yeah. Oh well.
Yeah. But you want to see it. You want to see it in the big screen. And when the shit was over, the fucking crowd was fucking quiet as fuck.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn. I think everybody liked it though.
Yeah.
I think they were just like, damn.
I heard like some other people like that were commenting because I was looking at comments on some of the other reviews, and some people said that when they went to the theater, like after it was over, everyone was just like sat there quietly, like, holy shit.
Yeah.
So it was like kind of like that. Everybody just like felt like they got beat up or something like that. Didn't we say that when we said the first time we saw Mad Max Fury Road?
Yeah, it's like Fury Road.
The first time I saw that in the theater, I said, I just feel like I got my ass kicked.
Yeah.
It's kind of like
I couldn't take it all in. I want to go back. I want to see it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to go make some tacos.
Yeah.
So you guys have a good rest of your weekend, and we'll be back tomorrow talking about an old classic, an old Mario Bava sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
Planet of the Vampires. We'll be talking about that tomorrow. So have a good rest of your Sunday, and we'll see you guys tomorrow evening.